YouTube, what's up? Back again for another daily fishing video here on Andrew Upshaw Fishing. Guys, today I have a really unique video for you. We're going to be talking about oversized squarebill crankbaits, when to use them, how to use them, and everything in between. But I really want to give y'all a quick update on what's been going on. You know, I haven't had a video out in a little while. I actually shot my Eufaula recap 3 different times last week, and I had malfunctions on every end physically possible. It was one of the most frustrating days that I'd had in a while. And honestly, after I did it the third time and it didn't work, I was so mad. I was like, nope, not doing it. Not doing it right now, at least. And so that's the only reason I haven't put one out, and I apologize for that. I had it done 3 times. So there we go. But, you know, we're sitting in 23rd place in points after 5 events of the Bassmaster Opens. We're sitting in striking distance. You can't ask for much better. I'm only 14 places back from making the Elite Series with 4 events left, and we're headed to the St. Lawrence River here in a couple weeks. So I'm really excited to see what happens. Not real sure. I say a couple weeks. I guess it's about a week out now that I head there. So got a lot going on in the next 7 days. So I figured I better put this video out, talk a little bit about oversized crankbaits. You're going to see a little bit of content during ICAST, which is next week, which honestly, guys, I know y'all see a ton of content on ICAST, but it is some really cool stuff that goes on there and a lot of really unique things. So I've got a lot of meetings both days, and then I fly up to St. Lawrence River. So let's talk about oversized crankbaits, when to use them, how to use them, what you use them with, and why you need to be using them right now. Right now is the perfect time to use oversized squarebills. It's actually a bait that helped me significantly at Eufaula. I actually caught 2 of my best fish during the event on a KVD 4.0. This is a KVD 8.0 though. This is a really big squarebill. And I want to talk about that. I want to talk about these big squarebills because they are kind of intimidating. You got to have a little bit different gear for them because they are so much bigger. And just kind of dive into that a little bit. It's not something that really gets talked about a whole lot, and I really don't know why, because they are such effective baits. To give you a little bit of size comparison, this is the 8.0 here, okay? And here is a KVD 2.5, you know, so both of them are fairly large for, you know, what you're fishing, but the 2.5 isn't as big as intimidating as some may think. And it's a really good square bill. Catch a lot of fish on a 2.5, but on the other end, I catch a lot of fish on an 8.0 and a 4.0. They're 2 baits that I fish a lot. I mean, I have a whole entire tackle box that's devoted to 4.0s and 8.0s, and I carry them a lot of places, and they are very, very effective. So when to use a 4.0 or 8.0? Well, a lot of times it depends on your forage. Are the fish eating threadfin shad? Is there a good gizzard shad presence on your lake? Are they eating oversized perch, you know, those big bull brim? What are the bass eating? In some situations, are they eating yellow perch if you're up north? I mean, there's a lot of situations where fish eat oversized baits. I mean, if you think about it, if you really break it down, we catch a lot of fish on 6-inch, 7-inch swim baits and all these real big, you know, real big baits. Is that, I mean, this square bill right here, this 8.0, in comparison to a 6-inch swim bait, isn't that much larger. It's just intimidating when you put it in your hands and you're like, man, that is a big square bill. But in reality, you're just as likely to catch a bunch of 2-pounders, pound-and-a-half fish on an 8.0 as you are catching really giant bass. So when to fish it? You know, obviously the very first thing is, are the bass eating oversized forage, whether it be the bluegill, the shad, whatever it may be? Once I determine, okay, these fish, you know, I've caught a couple bass, I've looked in their throats, I see these real big shad, I see some big shad floating, or maybe I see some big shad on my active target too. Okay, so I know these fish may be targeting these bigger baits. Well, in this situation, this 8.0, or these oversized square bills, they don't necessarily dive the deepest, nor do I want them to. So, and there is certain situations where, you know, it's the middle of summer, it's 105 degrees outside a lot of times. Are those fish necessarily going to be shallow? On some lakes, they will not be. But some lakes, they absolutely will be. And those are the situations where you got to really pay attention to water color, conditions outside. Is there a bunch of wind? You know, there's a lot of situations where that bait can be ultra effective. In my opinion, it's no different than going out deep with a 10XD this time of year and trying to target oversized bass. The 10XD, day in and day out, on Toledo Bend, a lot of lakes that I fish, it's one of my favorite baits of all time. You catch a lot of fish on it. You catch a lot of big fish on it. Well, when it comes to figuring out the actual spots to catch them on, there's a lot of different things. So, Eufaula, for instance, I could not catch good fish or even big fish in the water that was too clean. So the closer I got to the dam, the deeper the fish seemed to be. Instead of being in that 3 to 7 foot, 8 foot range, they were in like that 10 to 14 foot range. Now, were there some shallow fish? Absolutely. But for whatever reason, that shallow or that clear water pushed them a little bit deeper. It was super hot, and the fish kind of staged out a little bit. But I couldn't catch them as good in super duper dirty water, and I'm saying like you see this far down, nor did I really fish it that much. I personally just don't like fishing that dirty of water. It just throws me off unless I just have to, unless the whole lake is that. A lot of times I will go try to find that in-between stuff. I don't want to be super clean, but I don't want to be super dirty. And that is where I caught them cranking. What I was doing is I would either get on my side imaging or my side scan on my Lowrance HDS Pro, and I would find these rock piles, these isolated rock piles. I was really targeting a lot of my stuff in that, I don't know, about 4 to 8 foot range. And if I could find really big or oversized rocks or even just some hard spots, I even caught quite a few off of sides of roads and things like that. But if I could find those little hard spots, a lot of times I would find bait. And when I found the bait, the bass wouldn't be far behind. But one thing, the big misconception, and even I, to this day, like I struggle with it severely, is 2 of my bass that I caught on the Squarebill, I caught when it was dead calm. I mean like slick, like no wind whatsoever. And I picked up that 4.0 and caught 2 really good fish. The deal is when it comes to cranking a Squarebill, and the difference is, if I was throwing a hybrid hunter, for instance, a hybrid hunter is really loud, okay? And it's designed for fishing around grass. Can you fish around rock? Absolutely. And I've caught them around it. But it's designed for fishing around grass, and it's really loud, kind of like a lipless crankbait. Well, for me, that is more of a, you rip it out of the grass and you catch one. Okay, it causes that reaction strike. Well, in the Squarebill sense, it is silent. There's no rattles in it or anything like that, which I think makes it even more effective. I'm able to deflect that Squarebill off of cover, and I tend to get more bites when I do that. So that's why I was targeting that 4 to 8 foot range in that stained water. Now, granted, I was fishing on a calmer day. I caught those fish. Now, honestly, I like the windier days. The more the water's churned up, the more aggressive the fish are. But in the sense of this, they weren't. So I was having to really hit that crankbait hard off those rocks, and it would just load up. They would knock the fire out of it. So deflecting it is really, really important. But truly, having the right size line is equally important on these big, oversized Squarebills. When I'm throwing the 8.0, which is the largest of the Squarebills in the KVD lineup, I'm honestly throwing anywhere between 17 and 20 pound Strike King Contra fluorocarbon. I like to go oversized. I like to have that little bit bigger line, especially for cranking around rocks. I mean, you're grinding a lot of times, especially if I throw it up to the shallow end of the rock pile, which might only be in like 3 to 4 foot. I'm hitting the bottom almost immediately, and I'm grinding. Come over a rock, grinding. One eats it, And that whole time that you're grinding that bill across the bottom, that line, a lot of times, is hitting the cover. So you can't crank it on 10 and 12 pound tests and expect to have good results. You just can't. Could you crank a 10XD on 10 or 12? Sure, I don't. But, I mean, you can. And you're not going to break off as much because that long bill on a 10XD. Well, when you're throwing these Squarebills, that line is hitting all the time. So probably one of the most important aspects of cranking those big Squarebills is having oversized line. I can't stress that enough because you will break off if you use lighter line. Even 15 pound test is too light. Truly, I was throwing the 4.0 on 17. I was throwing the 8.0 on 20. I think those are both the right size lines for both Squarebills. you get the most effectiveness out of it, and you're able to land those fish. Now, when it comes to rods, you can't just throw an 8.0 and a 4.0 on a 7-foot cranking stick. Not going to happen. You're not going to have enough of the hook set. The hook gauge is too large, even though the hooks are really sharp. And I will preface this, I never change the hooks on my 8.0 or 4.0. I like the hooks that come on it. They're strong, they're beefy, but I'm throwing a beefier rod. This is a 711 heavy, fast action. This is a crankbait 3 rod. This is actually the Ledge Magnum Crankbait 3 rod. Was designed for a 10XD. So I'm basically throwing on the exact same rod that I would throw a 10XD on. And I'm also throwing it on a 6:8-to-1 custom, loose custom speed spool. I like that 6-to-1 gear ratio when throwing that big square bill. It allows me to speed it up real fast if I need to, but I'm not over cranking the crankbait. But if I need to slow it down, I can. And that is a really important aspect. That 711, though, it'll allow you to get a really long cast. But it's not even just about the long cast. You know, everybody's like, man, I can cast an 8.0 a mile with a 7-foot rod. Yes, you can. But the difference is when I'm throwing that 711, I can't tell you how many times this has happened. It actually happened in that particular tournament. I'd cast that crankbait all the way out there. I'd make 3 cranks and one would eat it. Okay? When that happens, if you're throwing a 7-foot rod, 100% you're not going to get the hooks set the way they need to be set. And so many times when you hook them with that big square bill, the first thing they're going to do is jump. When they jump, if you're throwing a 7-foot medium or medium heavy action rod, that fish is going to jump and throw the square bill. Therefore, you need to have a rod that when you hit them on that square bill, it drives those hooks in, because that first thing they're going to do is jump, and you don't want them to throw it as soon as they jump. Have the right rod, have the right reel, the right line. As far as colors go, when I'm throwing the big square bill, it's all about what I'm fishing or trying to imitate. If I'm in dirtier water, obviously the chartreuse and blue is hard to beat. That's what I caught them on at Eufaula. I mean, truly, a chartreuse and blue crankbait is hard to beat anywhere you go, or chartreuse and black even. Anytime that you're trying to imitate a big gizzard shad, a perch, in dirtier water, this is the color you want to be throwing. Yes, you can catch them on shad colors, and yes, I've caught them a ton on shad colors. There's a bunch of different ones that I like. Sexy shad, green gizzard shad if it's a little bit clearer water. It just kind of depends on the water clarity, the sky. What is that other one? It's the splatterback with the black splatter with the chartreuse belly. That's a really good one. White sides. I really don't overwhelm the colors. Now, if they're eating bluegill and the water's somewhat clear, I will go to, we have a natural bluegill color that's really, really effective in that situation. But otherwise, it's like chartreuse and blue and a shad color. And that's what I throw. In certain situations, I've gone to a red, like you've seen this 2.5. But more times this is the color to go with. And the other thing I do is and a lot of guys ask me, I undoubtedly will get a comment that says, man, what knot do you tie on here? I always tie a polymer on 17 to 20 pound tests, especially on these oversized split rings. So on the 8.0 and 4.0, you're going to find oversized split rings. If I tie my quick knot that I normally tie, that will actually break too easily. So that polymer, it slides on there perfectly, and I'm able to catch those fish. But overall, guys, honestly, if you're trying to get a big bite and the fish are shallow and you're fishing on a place where you can throw a crankbait, whether it be timber or rock or something like that, clay, hard bottom, road beds, whatever it may be, try to upsize your bait. You know, everybody's so stuck on, hey, let's go to a smaller crankbait, you know, something like that. But in this situation, if you're around big shad, big bluegill, big perch, upsize your bait. You'll be shocked how good it works. But guys, I hope y'all enjoyed this video. Drop a comment below. Tell me what you think about it. Have you ever used one? Do you use one? What's your favorite color? I'd love to know all those different things. I really appreciate y'all watching today's video. I'm going to be trying to get a little bit better, a little bit more prompt on my videos. So once again, hope y'all enjoyed it, and I'll see you on the next one.